Welcome to the Wordy Pair podcast, your go-to hub for all things writing, world building, and the occasional dive into the weird and wonderful world of fiction. We're breaking down the barriers between you and your next great story. Whether you're a seasoned scribe or just scribbling your first sentences, we've got something for you. We'll be discussing everything from crafting compelling characters to dissecting the good, the bad, and the downright bizarre in the world of fiction. Okay, this script says you guys are eccentric. Isn't that just a 3-syllable word for weird? No offense. So, whether you're in need of inspiration, a good laugh, or just a couple of weirdos to keep you company on your writing journey, you're in the right place. Thanks for tuning in to the Wordy Pair podcast.
All right. Hello, everybody. We are the Wordy Pair. I'm Rudy.
And I'm Justin.
And we are going to be talking to you today about, well, you know what, Justin? Why don't you give us the lowdown since you came up with the topic?
Well, I thought we would talk about the importance of rough drafts, simply because I had seen a few things on Twitter where, well, one specific thing I saw on Twitter kind of jumped out at me. I had read someone had mentioned how they kept talking about their character breathing and sighing, and they're like, why do I keep doing this? And I have an explanation for that. I can tell you why you keep doing that, and I can tell you why it's important.
Okay, go for it.
So, this is something that I do this a lot too. Like I'll do a brief little one-off of a character sighing or giving someone a look or making a hand gesture, something like that.
Sure.
And the reason I do that is because I'm one of those people that sits down and writes the story start to finish without any notes.
Right.
What happens is when you do that, you're setting yourself up for a proper rough draft in the sense that you have demarcated the places that you know you wanted to add more, but you didn't know exactly what you wanted to say yet.
Okay.
So what this does is it's exactly like when you're working a job. You have a job to do, you go in, you work, say, 10 hours a day, and you have something that you know needs to get done. So you go in and you start working at it, and you don't really have a plan, but you know that, in general, this is the way the job goes, and this is what I should have done by the end of the day. And whether or not that happens every day is, up in the air, but that's what you do. And so you get to the end of the day and you have just kept going and going and you've made progress at your job. One of the biggest mistakes I think that writers make is they get hung up on what they call writer's block, which I mean, it is a thing where it's like, oh, I can't come up with something to write next. But we've talked about ways to mitigate that before.
Sure.
One of the most important ways is to not try and write down everything that you planned on writing down before you sat down. When you get to a point where it's like, oh wait, I have an idea, but there's a point between A and B, two ideas that I have clear in my head that I'm going to write that should have more in it, and I don't have that bit yet. That is why you do not leave out these, like if you just write she sighed or he sighed or this person did this or that, and then you move on and you think, oh, I'm kind of just filling space here. That's not necessarily a bad thing, because when you go back to do your next draft, you're going to come across that and be like, maybe you hadn't planned on putting anything there, but you have that pause in your structure where you can look at it and say, okay, do I need to put more here, or do I need to remove this, or can I just leave it as it is? And that's virtually everything that you're writing down as you're going on. As you're going forward. So you might have a lot of sentences where you've used something like breathing as a tool just to make sure that the next thing the character does isn't immediately following something that doesn't have that should have a break between it. Almost like a pause for your workflow that lets you know that there might be something that needs to be done here. Because it's very easy if you actively leave things out, as I hear a lot of people recommending to writers, And again, we've
What do you mean
stressed
by
this.
actively leave things out? I haven't heard this before.
There's a lot of writers who will tell people don't use adjectives for one thing. Like that's one that it's just like, why would you not use adjectives? But people give that as advice. They're like, yeah, just leave adjectives, or no, not adjectives, adverbs. It's adverbs. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people will give you the advice of just not having adverbs in your story, which, I've read a lot of good stories with lots of adverbs, and it didn't hurt it. And I understand where they're coming from, because I used to read a lot of things in high school where it was just like, this is just flowery for the sake of adding words. But there's also people that are able to use many words in a story and make it sound right. I mean, we talked about this when we went over Lovecraft.
Sure.
How he made really long paragraphs, but even though he was repeating a lot of the same information or basically telling you something that could be summed up in one sentence, he used a lot of language to do so, and it really worked in his stories. They're already short stories to begin with, and they would have been incredibly short and pretty boring if he hadn't written them the way he did.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to use language, for sure.
Well, I mean, there are some. So the way I've heard this, try to minimize adverbs advice thing, and what or the way that I interpreted it, I'll put it that way. The way that I interpret it is that oftentimes there will be a single word, like said angrily, right? It would be better in that case generally to use a single word that means said angrily, like
Raged.
growled or raged is kind of iffy, but ranted or shouted or yeah. I mean, when you see an adverb next to the way that I interpreted this is that when you see an adverb next to a dull verb, see if you can turn it into a single good verb rather than a dull verb plus an adjective plus an adverb. But I mean,
yeah, and there's nothing wrong.
That's not. It's not always true that there's a way to say that in one word, and so sometimes you might need to use an adverb for that kind of thing. But like that was kind of the way that I interpreted it. So
it's also not true that it's necessarily something you have to do with everything. Some writing has a very lyrical flow to it.
Sure.
Or almost a poetic flow to it, and it works better if you have that extra word in it.
Yeah, if there's a meter reason why, like a flow or meter reason why it fits, that might work too. But even so, you should probably look it up, because it might be that, you might have three adjectives, or not three, I'm sorry, 3 syllables, that the correct word is also 3 syllables, and it flows similarly. In any case, I always took it as a goal to remove drab verbs and drab nouns, right?
Yeah. My point is, it's not important. It's not important to get hung up on these things. There's a lot of advice out there that it's just people's personal preferences. Like, I remember someone.
I mean, look, there's a lot of really bad writing advice and writing advice podcasts out there. Obligatory 3-second pause.
Take it from us. We're experts on bad writing.
Oh, no. I'm cutting. No. I'm putting a solid 3 to 4 second silence in there.
I wasn't sure if you wanted me to let it hang or if you wanted me to make a comment.
Oh, no, it's better. It's going to have both.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, but this is one of those things. It's like we didn't know which way we wanted to go with this, but now we've got it in the podcast and we can edit it in the future. This is an exact example of what I was talking about. So, a lot of advice out there isn't necessarily bad, but you have to remember a lot of it is also opinion. Like, I largely give writing advice based on my own opinions of writing.
Well,
but I've had people tell me that you should never use the word "was" in writing, and there's you can do that.
Was bad advice.
Yeah, you can write things without ever using the word "was" or "had been" is another one. It's like never use "had been," but I mean, there's times where it's just like, this is what's right. This is what I'm going to use. These are all just guidelines that people give you. These are not hard rules that you have to follow. The only time you have to follow them as hard rules is if you absolutely design your writing around following these certain rules. So if you want to be someone who writes without ever using the word was or had been, then yeah, you can do that. But you don't have to do that. This isn't like there's not like some magical golden rule book of writers that anyone has ever handed down from a divine plane and said, yes, this is absolutely the way it has to be. Because if that was the case, then it wouldn't be a creative process anymore.
Well, I mean, we all know that there are style guides out there, and that the style guides all have different advice. So just because it's written in Strunk and White doesn't mean it's written in stone either.
Yeah.
I'm a little curious. Had been. People really say don't use had been, but it changes the tense of the verb. That's the point.
I won't say people. Well, they're talking about not using the past progressive, I believe.
Well, like, so someone comes into a room panting, and the author writes, he had been running for the last 10 minutes. What do you do instead of that? I'm just curious.
Well, you could say, you could use were instead of had been. You could use was, but then you're breaking the rule of using was. It's
no.
He was clearly running, is what you could say. You would use was.
He isn't running now. It's an observation of currentness.
No, but was clearly is the same thing as had been, is kind of the point I'm going to get at here. It's saying he had been running. No. It's saying he had been running, and saying he was clearly running just takes it and puts it in an observational framework where it's someone had witnessed this person coming in and breathing heavily. So it's like, oh, he was clearly running. Whereas, the taken away from the framework of anyone's observation, which isn't necessary, is had been. He was breathing heavily because he had been running. Coming from the narrator perspective, basically, is getting the exact same point across.
I would even say that he was clearly running is different from he had been running. One is more sure than it necessarily needs to be, right?
Yeah, that's true. I'm not exactly sure because I never followed that advice. I'm not sure what was meant by never use the past progressive, but it was definitely something.
There are some things that happen in the past progressive.
Look, I literally don't write the rules. I'm just telling you what someone said.
I don't write the rules. I'm just telling you to break them.
Yeah, pretty much. No, this is just an example from my experience. I had once been told that you really shouldn't write in the past progressive, and it's just like, well, I write a lot of things that use the past progressive. Why would I not do that? I am definitely a has-been sort of person. I'm sure there's a joke there.
It's funny because there are places where what I think happens to people a lot is that they get stuck in that tense, and so everything becomes had been, has been, had been, has been, had been. Whereas, generally speaking, the better way to write fiction is to just use the plain past tense for most stuff. But if there's an observation happening, or if there's something that happened before the flow of the current part of the story, then it's okay to use the past progressive for that particular example. It's just that if you use it all the time, you're going to be adding had everywhere to your story.
Well, I would not be surprised if that advice had come from someone who had actually been given the advice...
You mean if that advice came from someone?
Yes. Son of a... No, it's possible that... See, because this is how bad advice kind of gets around. Someone says, oh, well, you should avoid using has been or had been in like every circumstance available, but you shouldn't refrain from using it entirely. And that's the part that gets left out of it's like playing the phone game where like someone gives that advice, but the person interprets that advice as, oh, never use it. And so they start turning their nose up at anyone that writes that using had been.
Yeah.
And so it just becomes one of them like elitist snob things.
I get you. Yeah.
I really think that there's a lot of that in any hobby where people, they adopt things from other people and they turn it into gospel.
Yeah.
Entire wars have been fought. Entire wars had been fought over this long ago. So anyway, you've got these things in your rough draft.
Yeah.
These little indicators. If you're the type of person that, this also brings up another point. I don't know if we mentioned this,
Okay.
I know we talked about Scrivener at one point, and I meant to say this the next time we chatted about something similar.
Mm-hmm.
So, Scrivener software, I've seen several people that use it. I have no problem with it. I don't know anything about it, so I have no idea if it's like really good or bad. I mean, it's a weird enough.
I mean, considering using it, I really would prefer not to.
Yeah, me too. Like I looked into it and I was like, maybe because it's I did notice that
No,
it was one of.
did you miss the joke? Did I?
No, I Bartleby the Scrivener. I got it.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
I don't want to ruin it for everyone. I was looking into the software, and it's one of the few pieces of software out there where you pay for it and it's your software. It's not a subscription-based writing service.
Well, that's at least nice. Yeah, sure.
So, it had that going for it. But then I read what it was, and it's just like the extra stuff that it does that everyone praises is the exact stuff that I avoid doing in my writing. So one of the bonuses of using it is that it saves everything kind of like how a programmer works with like an object-oriented programming where you'll have these libraries. And so basically you write you write one part and another part and another part, and it saves them all as separate files.
Yeah.
You can give them headings to remind you where they are. We're not talking like chapters or anything. We're talking like, okay, I'm writing this scene where this is happening, and the next scene, this is something that's happening. And these all become separate things in your story.
Sure.
And what Scrivener can do, having saved it as separate files, is it can give you this corkboard view where you can move things around in the timeline if you decide that they're better placed somewhere else. My immediate instinct for this was that this could easily screw up a story, and I was not disappointed when I looked up people talking about this. I had read a blog from an agent. An agent was complaining about how they can always tell when someone used Scrivener to write because they'll be reading a story, and a character that has never been mentioned before will just appear in the story because the author was not paying attention when they moved timelines around.
Oh.
And so this, if you mix up enough of what you've written, this is one of the reasons that I write from start to finish. If you mix up enough of what you've written, you have a lot to keep track of in your head. And you may be thinking, oh, well, it's written down. I can always go over it. But one of the things that another thing we've mentioned before is that as the author, you have a clearer view in your head of what everything means as you're reading it. So I have caught myself doing this when I've been editing stories before. I read over something several times and it's like, oh, the fifth time I finally realize, wait, this doesn't work. Because in my head it's flowing perfectly because I'm the one who wrote the story.
Yeah.
But it's like, if I really sit there and look at it, like try to take myself out of that and be like, how does it actually read? Oh, there's some problems here that need to be fixed. Happens all the time. Every single thing that I've ever written has at least 2 or 3 of these. And that's just the short stories. Like the novels, unbelievable amounts of time. You're pretty much looking at the same amount of time you spent actively writing your story, going back and editing and finding these problems.
If not more, honestly.
Yeah. Sometimes the editing process can be much longer than the writing itself. And it's usually good. I mean, you don't have to do this. I usually have a pretty big gap for anything big I write between the time that I finish and the time that I start editing, just so I don't have it fresh in my head.
Yeah, I mean, that's a reasonable thing to do, is to distance yourself a little bit. Even just between drafts, it's not such a bad idea, because that way you are reading it a little bit more like a reader and not like a writer.
I would say maybe after the second draft. After the rough draft, I see no problem with immediately jumping back, because you may have things still fresh in your head
there may be different ways to deal with that and different timings and stuff like that, but
well, this is one of those opinionated pieces of advice. I say that because after you've finished, you probably still have fresh ideas in your head that you wanted to add but weren't sure if you needed to. And going over the rough draft immediately lets you see very quickly, oh, should I add this in or remove this bit? Or there's a lot of times that I will write something into a story with the intention of coming back and fleshing it out later. And then I get back to it after I've written it. I'm like, I really don't need this here, so I'm just going to take this part out.
Well, I mean, and it can go the other way too, of course. You can say, oh, this chapter, for instance, is way short. and they're visiting a new place, and I didn't really describe it. Maybe I should describe the place. I mean, you might even find that you want to add a few more chapters or something like that.
Yeah, that can happen too. You can.
That's what happened to me actually. I'm now on the third. I'm working on the third draft of my first full length novel, and so the first time through it ended up a little over 50K, like a super short novel, and then I went through it once, and what I learned going through it once was that number one, I added 10,000 words, and number two, I discovered that I wanted like three more chapters, and so I wrote those 3 chapters. And now I'm going through the whole thing for the third draft. That is the second level of editing, and yeah, it's probably going to gain another 10,000 words on the way through.
Yeah, I have similar problems, but usually in my first draft, I keep adding and adding and adding and adding. It's like, ooh, 60,000 words, we got this. I'm at 90,000 words. What happened?
Yeah. I mean, I write from outlines, so I didn't have that problem.
Yeah, I just can't. I can't do the outline thing. I got to sit down and just keep going. I think that's what people mean by plotters and pantsers. I'm assuming pantser means people who write by the seat of their pants.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, so now I have confirmed my my theory. I'm not actually too big into all the lingo that the writing community uses for themselves.
No, it's mostly pretty self-serving, honestly.
Yeah. And the writing communities seem to be dying off, unfortunately. Like, there's still a handful of forums, but forums are going the way of the dodo. And I don't know how much more I really have to say about this basic idea of, oh, you've inserted things into your story that you think you're just filling space with, but actually it might be helping you once you get past the rough draft. I genuinely think that that's some good advice, but I don't think.
Well, I mean, I think that we can go a little further, and we can say that redrafting multiple times is probably worth doing, just because it gives you more time to look at it, more time to add things, more time to understand how that story is flowing. More time to find mistakes. It's one of those things that you can unless you can go through the story from start to finish and say I don't want to change anything, like there might be something to be gained from that. And you don't want to do it forever, so you should probably set yourself some kind of a deadline or some kind of a limit, or like I'll go through it one more time, and if I don't find more than X things, maybe I'll call it good, kind of thing, something like that. It also helps to. I mean, it's one of those things where you can. There are 2 ways that you can also help yourself edit your own stories more effectively. One is what you mentioned earlier, taking a little time off to distance yourself from the story a little bit. The other one is to just read it extremely slowly, which is extremely irritating to do the first time you try to do it. But the more you do it, the better you get at slowing down and actually seeing every word, to the point where eventually you'll start finding like little mistakes that you missed the first couple of times you went over just because you were going too fast.
Well, I can say that if you're one of those people that's driven crazy by the prospect of reading things slowly like I am, just do everything by like a couple pages and just read those same couple pages several times if you absolutely have to like read fast. If you just can't bring yourself to slow down, that helps too. I'm going to set a hard limit for myself at a certain word cutoff, and if I break that word cutoff, I have to finish by adding 20,000 words worth of talking about coffee cake. So everyone from now on will know if I actually met my word limit or not. It was a sci-fi thriller, and then it just sort of devolved into people sitting around having tea and coffee cake. And just talking about the coffee cake. Like all the characters that hated each other are now just talking about coffee cake with each other.
Apparently it was good coffee cake, because it bridged these gaps, but, still, it was a little jarring.
Who'd have known the great old ones could be placated just by, sitting down for tea and biscuits?
Well, I mean, they might not sit down for biscuits, but if you get them a good scone, that might do it.
The scone ones were, the scone ones are.
The scone ones shall be hungry.
With currants in it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you can do raisins. You can get away with it, but currants are yeah.
Dried orange
preferred.
slices.
Yeah, those are harder to come by, but it's doable. I mean,
What do you
any
mean harder
any
to come by?
relatively.
It's dried orange. You cut up dried orange and you put... What do you...
Where do you get dried orange?
You live in the same country I do. You go to the store, you get dried fruit anywhere. Dried orange is there.
I guess. Who
Just
buys dried fruit? That's just crazy talk.
Listen, I've been an apple chips guy from the word go.
I mean, if you eat enough apple chips, you definitely have to go.
That's also probably true.
It's very true.
Dried apricots are good. Dried kiwi is good, but they oversugar it in most places.
I've never had dried kiwi. Kiwi seems like it's way too soft of a fruit to dry properly, but
It's one of my favorites. It's the seeds. The seeds in it taste so great when it's dried out. And the problem is that, like, I don't know how they... I don't know what they do after they dry them out, but everyone seems to feel the need to add sugar to the kiwi when they dry it out, and it's like, it's already sweet, dude. Stop it.
Well, I don't know. We should probably curtail this segue to a certain degree, like immediately.
I can't. I'm trying to figure out how.
Didn't you just eat? Come on, man.
Why do you think I'm talking about food? If I don't eat, I get hungry, and therefore I have to think of food and talk about food. And if I do eat, I just ate, and I'm thinking about food, so I have to talk about food.
I see.
This is how this works.
That makes sense.
This is actually a pretty good summation of my writing process.
Uh-huh. Eating dried fruit?
Yeah, dried fruit. My writing process is dried fruit. I'm going to write the book one day. It'll be 3 pages long, and it'll just be me talking about delicious dried fruit and how that led to the Rackin'.
If dried fruit actually led to the Rackin', I would actually like to hear that anecdote.
I can make one up, but dried fruit did not lead to the Rackin'.
Okay, that's what I thought.
unless it led to a bathroom visit in which I sat there long enough to come up with the Rackin'. That's the best I can give you at the moment. But
fair enough. All right. Well, anything else that we want to say about drafting? Redraft your stories, for God's sake. Don't just, unless it's something that you've got a deadline for, and you don't care about it that much. And even if you do have a deadline for it, you should probably still leave some time in there to redraft at least once. Because you're going to find things in there. If you look carefully at it, you're going to find things in there that you don't like the second time through. That you just were kind of not paying attention that well when you wrote. And you're going to want to change them.
Yeah, if you have... Okay, so if anyone's really paid attention to the internet for the past 15 years, you may have noticed that even the quality of, like, top news sites really diminished over, a decade and a half. It went from, like, these were the people that really didn't make that many mistakes, to there's not an article on the internet now that doesn't have some kind of typo somewhere, if not several. And I think there's a lot less care that goes into it. And I'll say for sure that, if you're writing short stories and you want to write a lot of them, or if you want to, like, write short stories and then write a novel to follow them up when you're done, it's okay to not give your best editing and, when it comes to short stories. I still wouldn't recommend just writing one story and throwing it up without even, going over it like a rough draft.
Well, you can do that. You're just what you're going to end up doing is you're going to end up creating bad habits for yourself.
Yeah,
and you're going to create bad. I'm not going to say gonna, but you're very likely to create stories that have enough weird mistakes and holes in them that people will start to say, this guy doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah, and it's also a case of you don't realize how many mistakes you have sometimes. So if you're only writing and then, like let's say you're writing stories without, going back and looking them over and then posting them immediately, you're treating your writing like Twitter posts.
Sure.
You can end up with, you go back and you realize that you had like 20 mistakes and you're like, how did I do that? Well, it happens because no matter how many times you go over your work, you could do 7 drafts and then edit it for a year and still end up publishing something that has 7 mistakes in it.
Yeah.
nobody's going to care about, let's say you have a 60,000 word novel and there's 3 mistakes in it. The mistakes might be jarring to someone as they come across them, but they're not going to hate you as a writer for having a mistake or two in your published novel. I mean, let's be honest here.
It's when it becomes a pattern that the problem arises, right? If you go through and you see at irregular intervals an occasional small mistake, then it's not a big deal. But if you see the same mistake being made over and over again, then you start to realize that the person writing this thing was actually careless. And if they were careless about their spelling or their grammar or their syntax, then what else were they careless about? Maybe the story? Possibly.
Oh, yeah, and, that's the top... I'd say that's the top thing right there. Like, you can have some leeway with grammar, and you can make the occasional mistake where you use the... So like, one of the mistakes I have made a lot is... So there's been times where I've written she when I meant to write the.
Mm-hmm.
And, even that is just like, oh, this person meant the there. The human brain is capable of, solving these puzzles. If something reads weird, it's like, wait, was that? Oh, that was just a mistake. Okay, no problem.
Yeah.
But you really, really, really got to be on top of spelling. You don't want to mess up spelling. Yeah, that's like, everyone knows the there, and there as a spelling mistake that people make, but there are a lot of words out there that people think are spelled one way, and every time you come across a word where it's like you've spent your whole life not thinking about this word and now you're actually typing it out and you're like you're a little uncertain, it's a good time to hit up Google and just confirm the spelling of that word. I've had a couple of words.
Yeah, I do that all the time.
Yeah,
and I'm a fairly good speller, but like at the same time, I'll write a word that I haven't written or read very frequently, and I'll say, "Is that right?" What I often make mistakes with, honestly, are British versus American spellings of words.
Well, British spellings are a mistake, so I can understand.
I mean,
that.
I know that, but like
and
sometimes I'll use them
by
accidentally.
The Brits again.
Yeah, well,
No, as someone who has fantastic spelling and has read the dictionary back to front, I have come across a lot of problems where... Oh, okay, so for instance...
Why did you read it back to front?
Did I say back to front?
You did.
I study Japanese, forgive me. Anyway...
You read your Japanese dictionaries in the wrong way, too?
Yes, I read those front to back. That's wrong.
That's why all of your sentences start with a verb.
Yeah. Yeah, don't read my books. They're atrocious.
I dare you. I dare you to get through one of Justin's books.
It's like falling into a thresher with Yoda.
A Yoda made of salt.
A pillar of Yoda.
How'd they make that salt green? You don't want to know.
There's words where I would have made stupid mistakes if I didn't look them up. Like, I had never really had a reason to write the word battalion before, and in a story I wrote a year or two ago, which I just rediscovered, I realized that in the title it had the word battalion, and just looking at it, I was like, I don't really write that word. I need to see if I spelled this right. I immediately went to Google for something I had already finished, and looked up battalion, because I wasn't sure if it was 2 T's and 1 L or 1 T and 2 L's.
Yeah.
So like there's mistakes like that I always try to watch out for. That's like
And my instinct is 2 T's, 2 L's, but am I wrong? I might be wrong.
It's 2 T's and 1 L according to Google. However, that's another thing.
Really? Interesting.
You gotta be on the lookout for the internet lying to you.
Sure.
Because I considered the possibility that it was 2 L's as well. And so I looked at several different return queries to make sure that everything was coming up with 1 L.
You check a couple different dictionaries if you're really confused. Yeah.
The dictionaries online are getting horrible. It's like
I know.
You used to look up a word and the first thing you clicked would be like Merriam-Webster and it would give you the definition. And now you've got like Google gives their definition, and then there's 3 advertisements, and then you find someone like Merriam-Webster or some off-brand dictionary. You go to them and there's an advertisement saying, get more words by subscribing here. And they won't actually tell you the word. And then you finally find one that has the word and it's like 2 pages deep in a Google search.
Yeah, I mean...
Having a physical dictionary is useful.
A physical dictionary is nice.
Or at least an electronic dictionary like like get a dictionary on Kindle or something that you can easily look things up in.
I mean, you can also try avoiding using Google, which might give you better results.
Yeah, there's that. Well, no, because I don't actually use Google. I've used DuckDuckGo. I've used whatever the Brave search is using, and there's another one. Pre-search, I think, was one that I was using.
Mm-hmm.
And they all kind of work the same, except in the case of the non-Google ones, you didn't get the 3 advertisements followed by a subscription offer to a dictionary, because you need to be paying that $1.99 a month for access to a dictionary that you could buy for $6.99 and put on your desk. Right?
Yeah, you just buy it and put it on your shelf. It's like dictionary as a service. No, stop. Please stop.
It's like subscribe to everything, and at some point it's going to get so bad that everyone's just going to have the choice. Well, do I eat or do I get an education? So it's like I'm not allowed to learn anything.
Do I subscribe to a food service?
I'm not allowed to learn anything unless I pay $14.99 a month, but I have to pay $27.99 a month to continue getting salad and croutons.
Right. I mean, I usually I don't know. I haven't had this problem. I usually just use what am I using on Brave right now? So if I type like dictionary battalion, I get Merriam-Webster, dictionary.com, Cambridge, Wikipedia.
So do any of them have the definition in the search?
In the search? Dictionary.com does.
It's experiment time, boys.
Cambridge does. And Wikipedia has the first sentence of the Wikipedia article, which is basically the definition. Then Collins is next. That has one definition and the first 3 words of a second definition. Yeah, I mean, this works pretty well for me. Just to write the word dictionary and then the word that I'm trying to look up. I'm using pre-search, by the way.
So maybe that's an important piece of advice. Type in dictionary first. I would usually just type in the word, and a lot of times,
Oh yeah, if you just type in the word battalion, you're gonna get a bunch of random nonsense.
Well,
but if you type in dictionary, you'll get dictionaries.
Well, a decade ago, and for like up until maybe 5 years ago, I could regularly just type in a word, and one of the first things that would come up would be Merriam-Webster with a definition, or even Cambridge seems to have a pretty decent online dictionary. But it's just been the past couple of years where something has happened to the internet where you can't just do that anymore, and yeah, maybe it's nothing to type in dictionary first, but I think it's probably better to do what I used to do at this point and just have a dictionary page open that I can type a word into.
Sure.
But a lot of these dictionaries are doing, like a lot of them are switching over to having a basic dictionary, and then they want to charge you for an expanded dictionary with the words that you would actually have to look up if, you had a 6th grade education.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, they're definitely... I mean, I own an unabridged dictionary. I think it's a Merriam-Webster. It's from probably 10 years ago, something like that. You can probably get dictionary. You can probably get like a PDF version of a dictionary over at archive.org, an old one.
Yeah, the website dictionaries are convenient to look things up in, but if you get like an old PDF of a dictionary or something, you could. Well, wait, can you do word searches in PDF?
Usually, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you just search for the word in the PDF and.
The Random House College Dictionary. Oh, it's a text to borrow. Hold on, we're gonna go always available. Grammar School Dictionary, a dictionary of the English language. Dictionary Sanskrit to English, English to Hindi. Yeah, that's the one downside of archive.org. What?
I said, are we all having fun yet?
I hope so. I really do.
The next hour of the show is going to be us doing internet searches for random nonsense.
Yeah, I mean...
Does anyone know how to make toffee? We're going to learn right now.
The Devil's Dictionary by Ambrose Bierce.
Ambrose seems like the right name for someone to write a Devil's Dictionary.
Ooh, Samuel Johnson's English Dictionary from 1827. Now we're talking. 1,200 pages of words.
Ooh, Helen Keller's dictionary.
This is a really bad copy. It's all soaked through with water. Anyway.
So do we have anything else to talk about for rough drafts? Because we're sitting here at 40 minutes and we've already gone off on internet searches.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Hang on, let's ask the audience. What would you like us to talk about?
I mean, feel free to throw comments over on the YouTube version or whatever. I also do.
Whoa. Don't play into them too much. I was just making a joke because I knew no one could respond.
I mean, no. There are ways for people to respond. There's a question at the. If you go onto Spotify, there's a question for each episode, and I've actually been customizing those after like episode 5 or something like that.
I have to be completely honest with you. I have only looked at our YouTube page so far. I have not even seen the Spotify page.
Well, the Spotify page is where we're getting most of our hits, so that's worth noting.
Yeah. You're the man in Havana here.
Oh, okay. I don't know what that idiom means, but
it means you're the one that's really putting all this together once we record it. This is literally all I do
true.
For this. Is just sit here and talk and come up with.
Well, you come up with ideas sometimes too.
Ooh, no, it's an idea man. It's a middleman.
The idea man is not the middleman by definition.
You're right.
Yeah.
No. You're wrong. The middlemen think they're the idea men sometimes, and this
that
can be aggravating.
Make them idea men.
No, it doesn't. But it puts you in a situation where. How can I put this? I self-publish because I'm tired of people telling me what I should be writing and having no idea what they're talking about because they've never written dick.
Yeah, well, there's that. But let's get back to the topic at hand, right?
Oh, we
Drafting,
were having fun
redrafting.
there. We were having a back and forth.
Were we? I wasn't. I was freaking out.
You're just over there like sipping a shaking glass of wine, bringing it to your lips, and it's spilling all over your lap. And it's like, when will he shut up? When will he shut up?
I mean, it was a red, and now so is my shirt.
Yeah. So not unlike a mistaken wine spill on a shirt, you want to watch out for the little spills in your rough draft. So you write your okay, so let's do what you do first, because I've already mentioned how I do it. I write everything, I go back, I go over it, I start looking for the mistakes, edit in and edit out the things that I wanted to add or whatever, and then I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, so what do you do?
So what do I do? I generally go through things from once I've written it, I go through things from start to finish. I read it. I try to read it slowly, at least once. It doesn't necessarily mean that my second read through is the slow one, but often what I'll do on my first run through of the story, that once it's completed, is I'll look for places to add things. Say, hey, I could use some more description here. Hey, I could have this character say something. I could make this character have this, express this idea that would help build their character. Because what can happen if you're sitting there writing for a long time is you can kind of just get into like narrator mode, I guess. It depends, of course, a little bit on the style of story that you're making. But if you get into this narrator mode, what happens is you start describing what the characters are doing and not how the characters are doing it or what the characters are expressing as they do it. And so, you can write an action like such and so did X. And then later on your second time through, you can say, oh, so-and-so did X. Why did they do X? Did they say anything about why they were going to do X? Or should they? Should they have a conversation, maybe if it's just like a line or two, about, oh, should we do this? Oh, yeah, well, that's a good idea kind of thing. You can add character interactions that way where you didn't have them before. And that helps to flesh out the characters a little bit better. That is, this person is going to come up with this sort of idea, and this person is going to come up with this sort of idea, and this person's going to have an opinion on this, and this person's going to have an opinion on that, and this person doesn't know about this, and he's going to say it, kind of thing. I went through and I was like, I need like 3 more chapters once I read my thing the second time, or once I read it the first time after I finished my second draft. I was like, I need like 2 or 3 more chapters, so I wrote those too. I try not to. I try to be as open-ended as possible. It actually helps a lot, I've found, to actually print something out on pen and on paper and just use pens on it, because it's easier. There's less of a barrier to adding a comment than if you have to like right click and click add comment and type in some stuff and all that stuff. And you don't need to solve every problem while you're editing. If it's good enough to just identify an issue and say, this is an issue, I need to work on this, and keep going. Because what you want to do is you want to be editing and not creating. You want to give yourself more time to do the creation than try to switch back and forth between those different modes. I think I just posted something to my blog about my editing of my novel, and I literally took a picture of one of the pages after I had gone through it with pen and paper. And let's see if I can find. I literally have like a description that was too terse, and I say like I give some points about how I would like that description to go, and then I realize that I'm just writing too much crap in the margin here, and so I literally have a parenthesis and it just says work on it.
I like the idea of just for kicks writing a good 10,000 words of the absolute driest thing that I could possibly write, and using it as an example of what not to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's very easy to get into that habit. And I found myself doing it a lot when I was writing the novel, because I was just like, I just need to get this thing out. I just need to go and go and go and go and go. And I didn't really have that, because you get that motivation, and that motivation will often carry you pretty easily through the first, say, 10,000 words or even 20,000 words. And then after that, you start to slow down a little bit, because you're like, okay, I've been writing this thing for a long time now, and maybe I need to do something else. And then when you do something else, you kind of lose your position in the stack. And when you come back, you're like, oh, I think I'm doing this. And, you can keep going, and you can find that, like, the voice that you were using changes significantly from day to day as you're writing. I was in a different mood this day, so I wrote a little bit more bitingly. I was in a different mood this day, and so I wrote a little bit more subdued. Stuff like that. And so you can go through and you can kind of feel how everything flows once the story's done, and make any corrections to your voice as necessary. And you can add things, you can take things out, you can rearrange things. Generally speaking, I don't do that much rearrangement, but that's probably partly because I write from an outline and I kind of know where I'm going. Stuff does get rearranged in little bits here and there. There was one whole scene that I kind of rewrote because I didn't like one of the details of it, and I said, no, they wouldn't do this, they would do something else. And so I had to stop and say, I had to basically, I have a couple of, it's like a page and a half of my stuff on paper, where I just have a red arrow pointing downward along the left margin. It's just like, this whole thing needs to be reworked. Go to it. And I did it. It wasn't too bad. Don't be afraid to do that too.
Yeah, and maybe eat a little bit of dried fruit here and there to keep you on your toes.
Yeah, or have some coffee cake.
So one of the things that is current in Justin's fantabulous La La Land, I was writing a story that ended up, I knew how I wanted to start it. I didn't know what the point of it was. So I just started writing it, and it ended up being nothing but character interactions and little bit of extra world building for this tiny little short story collection that I'm doing.
Okay.
And as I got further and further, I was like, there's really nothing happening here. So my solution to this problem was not to abandon the story or to go back and rework the whole thing. What I did is I came up with two things. One was a joke that gave the story a bit of purpose. So it was basically characters from one story going to meet a character from another story. And I decided that I would make the joke that the entire time the stupidest one among them was actually well aware that the smartest one was there for a reason that she hadn't mentioned. And so she points this out, much to the dismay of the intelligent one. It's not important how it all works out. It's just, that was what that was the tiny little thing that I did to give the entire thing a bit of purpose, but it still wasn't enough. It didn't really explain, why did all of this have to happen?
Okay.
Which it doesn't. It doesn't have to do that. This could be just a slice of...
Nothing has to happen. You don't have to write a story.
Well, I mean, it could just be like a slice of life. The whole point of
writing a story is to write a story.
Yes, but, as we've talked about before, it could have just been like a slice of life thing. Because that's all these are, really. It's just like little jokey stories with a couple of time-traveling characters. But one of the other short stories I'd wanted to write was for one of them to meet a different character at some point. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. I've just set up the entire situation for them to do that. That's how I can finish this story.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes you just have to like I said, treat it like you're working a job for 8 hours a day or something. I'm not saying like sit there and write for 8 hours a day, but I'm saying like you approach your job by going in and you just keep working because you're there getting paid to work. Now, you're not getting paid necessarily to sit there and write. And if you
God
are,
willing.
if you are, good on you. But
Yeah.
if you treat it that way, then a lot of times you'll see that you've got enough to where it'll fall into place for you. It becomes a habit to
So what I would say is this: it's important to sit there for a certain period of time and at least try to write what you want, but it doesn't mean that you need to necessarily be writing the whole time. It's okay to get stopped, to stop and think. The thing to avoid is getting into like this kind of like rancorous mindset where you worry about being blocked more than you think about how to get out of where you're blocked.
Yeah, we had a good segment on that where we were talking about pretending there's no
Yeah.
such thing as writer's block and just using it as an opportunity to come up with a good idea to solve a problem.
Yes.
So there's a lot of fun that can be had with that, and that's just one of the things that happened with me recently.
Not just fun, but it's also practice. Because you're going to want to build those creative skills as well.
Yeah, this is a skill, and it's a skill that can come in handy when you want to do creative. I mean, we did something recently which we had just a handful of small notes, and we somehow dodged bullets left and right. Well, I mean, I guess it doesn't matter because it will be out before this one. But
so there was an episode that came out late by a couple of days, and there was a reason it came out late. And the reason it came out late is because it was an April Fool's episode. And if you've been following our podcast, you will already have seen this episode. And if you have not, you should go back and see it because it's great.
Yeah, we came up with a lot of stuff on the spot, and I used much of the practice I've had in coming up with a quick solution to a problem. I mean, most of that is just stuff that I learned by coming up with ideas for writing. I'll take a situation and say, okay, like what are like 5 different ways that this can be solved and which one is the best. That's one of the fun things you can do is if you have a tricky situation, spend your free time when you're just listening to music or something or driving around. If you have like errands to run, that's a good time to run your errands and just think about what possible solutions there are to that problem. And don't just stop at the first one you come up with. Come up with several and see if you can find one better each time.
Yeah.
It's I guess it's part of the improv game or something. I don't really do improv or anything like that, but I'm willing to bet it's a similar kind of skill set.
There's an element of it too, yeah. I mean, the thing about improv, like stand-up improv, is that here's the cool thing about writing. In stand-up improv, they have a rule. It's called yes and, where whenever someone says something, you don't ever shut it down. You always just say yes and. You always just build off of it. Now, you can do that when you're writing, but here's the thing, is that if you're standing up in front of a camera and talking with someone else and you're doing improv, you really can't go back and improve it. But that is something that you absolutely can do as a writer. And so, while it's important for you to keep that yes and spirit in your head as you get yourself out of the current corner that you've written yourself into, you can always go back and say, well, hold on a minute. Is there a better way to do this? And you can go back and you can fix it even better. And what might happen is that the first solution you find is a good solution, but then you think of something that you could add to it that would make it funnier or more engaging or more effective. Or you think of, hey, I had this character do it, but really it would be more fitting for this other character to do it because their area of expertise is this. So this is one of those things where you can improv and you can layer more improv on top of your improv. And you can go back and you can improve things after you've already written them. And that's really one of the great things about writing is the fact that you can really polish something a lot as opposed to something that's like in the moment and it needs to be done now. Taking that time to go back over what you've done and really make it better is something that you can do endlessly if you want, but you'll find at some point that you kind of become satisfied with what you've got. And at that point, that might be where you start like saying, okay, maybe this thing is ready. maybe this thing is ready to go.
Or, and follow me on this. Follow me on this. Just nail it the first time. That's also very good advice. If you just
do everything right when you start.
Yeah, just get first time.
And if it's like that really awful. It's like that really popular phrase by our favorite green-skinned midget character, Yoda, right? Do or do not. There is no try, which is terrible advice, because there are lots of things that when you do them the first time, you're going to fail. You're going to do an awful job. And if you just say, oh, I can't do this, you're never going to try again. You're going to say, I'm unable to do this. I'm not talented enough to do this. But there are lots of things that, though you can't do them the first time you try them, you can do them if you try them multiple times. And so that's the message that I think I always think of when I see someone bring up that stupid phrase, is that there are some things that you're going to suck at the first time you do them. And there are some things that you've done a million times, and you're still going to suck every once in a while when you do it. And you just got to pick yourself back up and do it again. Try again, because eventually, a lot of things, through practice, you can improve your ability to do things, and you're not simply left at the level of your, base talent. Which, there are plenty of people who have lots of base talent in things, in certain areas, but a person who has taken the time to really hone their skills can often beat out a person with talent simply by the fact that they have a more refined understanding of the subject.
And I would like to add the corollary: always make sure you're practicing on the cadavers.
I mean, it depends.
Yeah, yes, under very extenuating circumstances, it definitely depends. Like you really, 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 really don't wanna. That's one circumstance I can think of.
Or just like you don't like the person that you're going to practice on.
Yeah.
Problem solved.
Anyway, this has been the Surgery Pair. Wait, what are we talking about?
No, I think we've done a pretty good job here.
We did it. We nailed an hour. We're 42 seconds over. 43, 44. Let's do this for the next hour. 45, 46.
No. Okay, so look. In conclusion, redrafting and editing your story is something that you should really take some time to do, because if you just rush it, number one, you're not going to see the things that need to be, because sometimes there are things that don't fit together, or that fit together in a way that they would fit together better if you added something to it. And if you don't take your time and actually look for these things, you can easily miss them. Just if you just read your story as fast as you can one time and call it good. Writing is one of those things where you have the ability to go back and fix mistakes. And that means that while you can sometimes get away with the occasional mistake here and there, the goal should be to find them all if you can. And, you can really take something that is rough to begin with, and you can really polish it. Like, I had a couple of, it was probably like a month or a little more than a month where I didn't even work on my novel because I was like, I don't like this thing. I don't think it's good. And then I sat down and I started editing, and I started making some of those first chapters actually shine a little bit. And I think I'm getting to the point where I'm like, okay, this might not be bad. This might be good. And, you can take something that you wrote on a whim, and you're like, well, I just kind of crap this thing out on a typewriter, and you can turn it into something that you actually really are proud of. And that's good to end up with that feeling of pride, because you won't necessarily always have that feeling of pride just from the writing. But sometimes if you spend enough time on the editing, that's where you'll get that feeling of pride, that you actually accomplished something.
Yes, because you won't have that feeling of pride in your broken down life, bills coming due, divorced, dog just died, cat just vomited on the carpet. There you are, stuck with all your problems. But you've got a story where you can either have a battalion or a battle lion, and you have every opportunity right now to fix that problem. Although I have to be honest, I think I would go with the battle lion now that I've said it.
Well, I mean, it just requires retooling a lot of the things that the battle lion does in the story.
No, I mean, all the soldiers are now themselves battle lions.
Oh, okay, that works.
Now all things are Voltron.
I was gonna make a Voltron reference, and you beat me to it.
9 times out of 10, you can rely on me to beat you to the Voltron reference, and it's like one of the few things that I've never actually seen.
I've only seen a very small amount of Voltron, but that's beside the point. Let's close this episode out.
No.
No,
We're not closing it out yet because
okay.
Your conclusion was entirely different from our original topic.
Was it?
Yes. So, also in conclusion, P.S. in conclusion, those things that you're writing that look like you're not writing well, those mistakes you think you're making by writing characters breathing and sighing and waving their hands about constantly, those aren't mistakes. Those are jumping off points for you to figure out what you're actually supposed to put there, or if you're supposed to leave it the same, or if you're supposed to take it out. Use those indicators. Don't be afraid of them, and don't think that you're doing a horrible job. Just get the job done, and it's there written down. You can fix it.
Aside from your focus on places where you've written something that you don't know, but
that was how we opened.
I just said
that was how we opened. So
I know, and I closed by saying there will be places that you find in your writing that you don't like, and so you can fix them, which is the same thing, isn't it?
No. Look. The topic sentence was specifically me opening talking about that problem.
The problem
of someone mentioning that they thought they weren't doing something right by constantly having their characters breathing and sighing.
Oh.
However, since we're probably going to title this something like The Magic of Rough Drafts, I guess your conclusion is equally apt, if not more so.
I guess I'll have to be more careful when I'm thinking up the title for this one, because I was gonna do that, and now I can't. Thanks.
You were gonna call it The Magic of Rough Drafts?
No, but something about drafts.
What kind of idiot would come up with a title like that?
Shut up.
What? I'm the one that came up with it. I'm the one self-deprecating. You don't get to say the shut up. I get to say the shut up. You're doing Manzai wrong, Rudy.
Unfortunately, I'm too far away to hit you with a paper fan.
You sounds like somebody needs a bigger paper fan.
Ooh. That's a really good point, actually.
You're the physicist. You're the one with the powers to work this out.
The powers to fold paper.
Yes, that is. You've trained your whole life for this moment, Rudy. You've got this. Come on.
It's just like Eye of the Tiger playing over me folding a piece of paper.
You keep accidentally cranking out origami cranes.
Damn it! Not again.
It's like wearing a headband, sweat dripping down. Carl Weathers is there for some reason.
Well, I obviously need a mentor.
All right. Well, I think.
All right.
I think if there is anything that we've ever covered that we've murdered in its grave, I think this is it. So
yeah, it's dead. We killed it.
Yeah, job well done.
And we beat it some more.
Oh wait, who did we get?
There's no more blood coming out of this stone.
We got canceled by
Britain
and people who use Scrivener today. And green midgets. You mentioned green midgets.
Green midgets.
Yeah.
I think the people who use Scrivener will actually like your advice about making sure that you don't accidentally introduce a character by moving things around on a corkboard.
Yeah, be
That's
aware
actually
of
really
what
good advice.
Be
Don't
aware
do
of what
that.
you're doing. Like, programmers will find it really quickly because it'll cause huge problems in what they're doing. With writing, you're literally just moving the file out of place, and it's up to you to go back and read it and make sure it makes sense. So do not neglect that.
Yeah, especially if you're using a tool that lets you move things around that much, because it's very easy to miss that there's a detail in part 6 that is introduced in part 5, and then you move part 6 to right after part 4, and things get all funky.
Yeah, I make mistakes like that writing start from finish. So I just imagine, right?
How easy it is when you just have to move a thing on a corkboard.
We need like a slogan or something to end with. I'm gonna come up with a goofy slogan or something.
Write stuff, damn it.
Do it right. Wait, do we spell it W-R-I-T-E? But then we're talking, so you can't actually read it.
No,
so we actually have to spell it out instead of saying it.
I was just suggesting that write stuff, damn it, be our motto.
I get that, but do we make the pun, the obvious pun, but then do we
No. No, just no pun. Just a command. We command our audience to write things. Because
okay, I like this. I was gonna go with I want the stupidest thing possible, so everyone will hate me for coming up with it. But
okay.
But if
I mean, we can do that.
It doesn't matter. We've been canceled. We've been canceled by like 3/4.
Now we've been canceled by the cancer.
We won't be canceled by them for long. Now we're canceled by people.
There we go. Very good. All right. Well, we are the Wordy Pair. I'm Rudy.
And I'm Justin.
And we will see you next week.
Unless the cancer people get us.
Which they might. They got nothing to lose.
Thanks for listening to the Wordy Pair Podcast. Our passion is all things writing, world building, and getting into the weird and wonderful world of fiction. We hope you enjoyed our unique takes. If you did, make sure to like, rate, review, and subscribe to get your weekly dose of writing weirdness. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, hit us up on Twitter. For Rudy, it's @Rudolph_Cone. And for Justin, @Ninja Mouse Chew. See you next time on the Wordy Pair Podcast.